Let's take a look at Daypart programming on an actual FM station. So here we're looking at the week view in Scheduler, and you can see the week is populated by different types of programs here. It's a variety station. And we're going to take a look at Saturday's program, which is 80s Wave, and it runs from 9:30 p.m. until Sunday at 1 a.m. If I click one of these arrows here, it will take me right to the program. And here it is, 80s Saturday start, 9:30 p.m. And the next hour is a 60-minute segment, is at 10 p.m. And the next hour is hour 3 at 11 p.m., 60-minute segment. And then the last one is the end segment at 12 a.m., which takes us up to 1 a.m. So let's go back to the start, take a look at the script. And our first line here is a time announcement. And we can put the interrupt for the time announcement right at 0, which will be the program start time, 9:30 p.m. The next command here is a combo. Now, for this segment, I've only provided combo connectors and intros and no outros. So all of these combos are going to have the jingle and then an intro, and then we'll fill with music to this time period and repeat that. We'll repeat that all the way up until it can fill up to somewhere between 25 and 27, which would be between 9:55 and 9:57, leaving room for the next segment to fill in with a perfect fit to the top of the hour. Since this station is not in use by Radiologik at this moment, we have the opportunity to actually test this program out. Let's go back, select the time, do a manual build, let it build. It'll have to gather the whole library, playlists, and put together the combos. And it failed on some things there, so it looks like it's going to have, but it came out okay. So everything looks good. Let's take a look at the failures since those did occur. It had a little bit of trouble actually trying to fit the tracks into these tight windows that I had here. But what it ended up doing is just skipping along and filling everything in. So go back to, let's go to hour 2 and look at the 10 p.m. So the 10 p.m., this one starts with a fill command to try to pick tracks to get us to that 10 p.m. area. If we go back and DJ, we'll see where did this land. 9:56. So it is in the window that I want. So there's potential we can get a track that's going to fill us to the top of that hour if we do the 10 p.m. next. Next command is the time, which is actually using my voice from the DJ Voices folder for time announcements. We do the station ID. We pick from a playlist that has the news. We pick from a playlist that has the weather. I have these being created by a task that is run hourly and creates these and updates them. But they're picked from playlists and music to get them in there. Then we go back into the music with a jingle and an intro. And I'm picking, or using fills, using different subgenres of playlists here. So coming right out of the hour, I'm doing top 40, stuff that everybody knows from that time period. And then a little bit later on, I get into the album cuts. These are songs that if people bought the albums, they'd know these tracks from those, but they didn't make the radio. Another combo. And then here, I'm taking advantage of the twin command. So the twin does the twin spin. And what this command does is it goes through the playlist. You want to use a larger playlist where you have artists that have more than one title in them. So multiple tracks by the same artist so that it can find qualifiers to actually do this twin spin. So it will do that. It will randomize that and come up with a combination. And you have to use 2 twin spins to get this done, but you can put other things in between when you do it, which is kind of nice. So that's what this does. It picks random and unique. And then I have this is basically a sound effect saying twin spin for this command. And then it does an intro. and then plays the next track by that same artist. What's interesting here is the attributes I'm using for this pick command for twin spin. Let's say we didn't have the tracks we needed to accomplish this twin. If we didn't, it would sound ridiculous to say we had a twin spin because it didn't work. So we have two attributes on here. One is dependent, and basically dependent means only execute this script line if the previous script line succeeded. And then the contingent is only include the script line if the next script line succeeds. And in this case, that's the intro for this. So if either one of these fails, and in fact, if this twin fails, this intro will fail. If either of these fail, we're not going to place a twin spin and embarrass ourselves. So we get all that done. We do a time announcement. We go into devotions, which uses a podcast over here. The devotions here. And this is downloading 5 minutes before scheduling the programs where it's used. And down here, I actually have it going through track prep because they usually have some silence at the end of the file. I like to trim that off and tighten things up for the station. So it runs through track prep, normalizes it, and gets that prepared. And then everything sort of follows off using different subgenres. We get down to, down in this area, I widened the window a little bit here to fit larger songs because this playlist is extended mixes, longer tracks, that sort of thing. Maybe things that were on 12 inches in the 80s that didn't get played on the radio. And then we finish off by filling to between 55 and 57. In this case, that's going to be for the 10 p.m. hour. This will be 10:55 to 10:57. We go to hour 3. It's mostly the same. I've got the twin spin in there again. In this case, my special line here is actually a date command instead of the podcast. And this looks at a playlist of devotions, of which we have 366 devotions, one for each day. If I hit this arrow by the playlist here, we can go and see this list here and see they're all dated, 366 of them. It will pick the one for the correct date. It finishes off pretty much the same way as a 10 p.m. hour. And let's take a look at the last hour, which is midnight. Again, fills to the top of the hour, time ID, news and weather, and pretty much all the same going through here. Here we repeat this devotion again and finish off the same way with this line, but because we're not going to have the next program necessarily know what to fill in with to get us to 1 a.m., we're going to fill it in ourselves. And instead of using to the top of the hour, here we're filling to the end of the program. This exact time match will actually not run short. If it's going to air in any direction, it's going to air going over. And the next segment at 1 a.m. can be responsible with an interrupt to fade down whatever is playing should this program too far. So let's go back to hour 2 and select 10 p.m. And we can actually add this to our program here. And see what we end up with for the 10 p.m. hour. So here's what we have. This is what's added. If I scroll over here, you can rearrange these columns if you like with Command J, by the way. But at the very edge here, you can see the programs are a column, and you can see which scheduler program actually programmed each one. So this track is the first one. I can also tell because it comes with its preference set. But this is the first track coming from the 10 p.m. hour. This actually filled very close, almost, well, not exactly perfectly, but very close to the 10 p.m. Then we get our ID, we get our news and weather, and we fill again up to just shy of 11 p.m. So And you can imagine I did the next two, it would come out pretty much the same as that. So let's clear this because this is not going to play until Saturday and we don't need it right now. To have dependable program scripts, we also can take advantage of fallbacks. Our main content is filling with music, but there are several restrictions going on here. One is we're picking from a playlist that has a limited number of least recently played. We're trying to fit into a time window, minimum and maximum. And then we have unique tracks, the separation rules, and the hour avoidance rules. So sometimes this can make it difficult to place a track because it won't be able to find one that fits all of those requirements. So in this case, if we end up coming short where we can't place the tracks we need, we can have fallback steps. And there are two sets of these. The first one is the fallback steps here. You can choose which fallback steps you find acceptable. So you could have none. You could have all separations turned off. Or you could have all separations turned off first to try that, and then hour avoidance tried next. And lastly, you could have all of those turned off, including unique. So for music, I find it might be acceptable to have the separations turned off and the hour avoidance turned off to try to find a track that will fit into that time window from the first playlist. For things like jingles or station IDs, I actually have it a little bit looser and actually allow unique to be turned off as well as a fallback step. If that fails, we can go to a fallback playlist, and it goes over all of this again. Our fallback playlist in this case is looking at all the tracks that are still in this subgenre of 80s, but they're all of the tracks for that, so it's a smart playlist that only shows those. To see how this operates, you can always go to the last log and take a look at the failures. And here's a case where it actually completely failed, even looking at all of the 86 tracks in the 80s extended all in this case. But at least it tried here. But this is where you'll look to see the evidence of how things are performing and how much it's struggling and if you need to make adjustments. And that's it for Dayparts.